All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. We got a couple in there to start with. So we'll start here with Carl C. Says, I struggle with being too quick, not completing my backswing, then releasing the club as I begin my downswing. I've been with TSG for about 4 months, working through the drills. Chopping the log has helped my early release, but not completely. I also find my weight more behind the ball at contact. What are your first moves as you transition to the downswing? So the downswing is going to start from the ground up, right? So we want to apply pressure into the ground in our lead foot. And then that gets the hips going. Then that gets the shoulders going. And that gets the arms. And that gets the club going. So what I'd recommend doing to kind of counteract some of the problems that you're talking about is I would just do some pausing swings at the top. So if you pause at the top, just kind of as a drill, what that will do is that will help you to not be so quick starting the downswing. And then it will also help you to focus on completing your backswing. And then after that, it will help you focus on how to start the downswing, to start the transition of the downswing. And the reason why we want to pause is because it helps you to organize your movements better. As you get to where you can organize your movements better, then you start to reduce the pause. So maybe right now you do like a long, hard pause, and then you would work toward taking a very short pause, and then you'd work toward basically having more of a fluid swing. So what I would do is I would go to the top, make sure you have a nice, good turn, right? And then you do a nice hard pause, and then get pressure into the ground with your lead foot to start the downswing, and then just rotate all the way through. Get to where you can do it in a practice swing, then get to where you can do it clipping a tee, then get to where you can do it with a ball, right? And you may hit a ball off of a tee to start with. But that's a great, if you're struggling at a certain area of the golf swing, one great way to work on it is to just pause at that area of the golf swing, get to where you can do it well, and then start to reduce the pause, and then eventually take the pause out of it completely. But the more reps that you get in doing that, where you've paused and you can organize your movements, the more comfortable you're going to get with it, and the better you're going to get with being able to reduce the pauses. So that's what I would recommend doing. All right, so Rick P says, Q, I've been spending time reviewing the videos in the classes on the TSG site. I am planning on now re-reviewing them and doing the drills. I understand it could be subjective as what classes should be taken before others. I have also been watching the videos in the vault categories and various video in the vault. Some of these classes are recommended, not necessarily the same ones, the same order. I'm trying to get the sense that the TSG recommends. Can you give me your opinion on what order I should watch the following classes if I were a new golfer? Well, if you're a new golfer, you probably need to just work on your setup and your grip first. Like if you're just like a completely new golfer beginner, that's what I'd be going for. And we have a vault section on that, the setup vault. So I'll get in there and I would work through that, get the grip good, get the setup good, and just practice that for a while and get better with that. Once you do that, again, as you mentioned, it is kind of subjective what you should be working on. You can work on the top speed golf system, right? And you listed a bunch of the courses there. I'm not sure if you're listing those in order of what you feel it should go. But the top speed, like let's say that you do the top speed golf system, we group, that would be grouping those 5 components together, right? So if you're going to work through the top speed golf system, you have the order just a little bit off. It would be stable fluid spine first, and then it would be power turn, then lag, then compression line, then straight line release. And the way that you would work through the top speed golf system, you can work through it in 2 ways. One, you can work through each piece. So you could do level 1, level 2, level 3 of stable fluid spine, and then go to the power turn, level 1, level 2, level 3, right? You could do it that way, and so on and so forth. Or what you can do is you can do stable fluid spine level 1, and then you could go to power turn level 1, and then you could do all the level 1s, and then go back and do all the level 2. So there's 2 ways that you can do it. Now, there is a good chance that you don't need to work through every section in the top speed golf system. The reason that would be because if you're already doing it, right? If you already have a stable and fluid spine, right? Your spine isn't moving all, your spine angles are good. you go through the test, you look at yourself on camera, and you're already doing everything, then it would really be redundant for you to do all the reps and stuff like that for something that you're already doing. So that would be like if you were learning to walk and you learned how to walk on a sidewalk. Like, what good is that? Is that going to make you better at walking? Probably not. You already can walk on a sidewalk just fine. So, so that's kind of that part of it. Now, you can definitely go to the power turn. So, what I would look at is what you want most from your golf game, or what you could even look at it as what you would most enjoy doing. Right? Would you enjoy more working through the Tosby golf system, or would you enjoy more working through the tournament challenge fix, the distance fix, the wedge? What do you enjoy more? I think that is important, because if you don't enjoy doing something, you may not do it. You may not stick with it and do it. So that's definitely something I'd recommend, is maybe even doing just one that you enjoy, even if it's not necessarily the one that may help you the most. So let's say that you're really struggling with distance, but you don't really, you went through and you watched the 20-minute distance fix, and it just doesn't look like something you're going to enjoy doing. But you like chipping, right? And, and you could use some help with your chipping. So even though that may not be the number one thing that you could do to help your game, it'd be beneficial for you to do that still. So one thing I would say is I would worry less about the order and what you should be working on and stuff like that, and just get to work. It sounds like you're spending a lot of time just watching videos, and a lot of that time could be just taken and just get to work and start working on stuff. That's really what's going to make you better, is just pick something and just go with it, and stop overfilling your brain with all this stuff, because honestly it's just going to get in your way. And I have found that a lot of people struggle with is that they see the new shiny object, right? They'll be working on something, they're like, oh, lag. Then they'll go work on that. What ends up happening is that they work a little bit on one thing, then they go to another thing, work a little bit on that, and they don't really make much progress. They just kind of sit there and spin their wheels. They work really hard, but they end up just kind of spinning the wheels. They don't really make much progress. So pick something and go with it and stick with it. Stop watching vault videos. Stop going to all this stuff. Kind of ignore everything and get to work. That's what I would recommend doing. If you are really, you really are serious about getting better at golf, cut a bunch of stuff out. Focus on something that is going to make you better. And of those things that you listed, those things can all make you better. Now, if you're already doing some of those things, just do something that is going to make you better, and get to work on it. And then once you get to where you feel like you're in a good place with it, then just go to the next thing. That's what I would really recommend doing. Now, if you're really serious about improving your golf and you want a plan, you want it cut down to what you need to work on to help you get the improvement the fastest. If you want to do that, then I would recommend working with a Tosby golf instructor through our online swing reviews program. That's what I would recommend doing. If you'd like to do that, I do offer online lessons. You can click the link at the top of the page. If you don't see a spot available, no worries. Just click the waiting list link, and then that will put you on a list. So that way, when I open up spots, you can sign up at that time. But that's, pick something, right, and go with it. Get to work. Get it done. And I'm telling you, if you do that, you'll make progress a lot faster for sure. All right, so let's keep going. So BJ says, regarding unlimited swing reviews, I note that TSG charges per month. Do you allow vacation pause? Usually we can do that. That'd be something you just talk over with your instructor. I don't know how the other instructors handle it, but typically, if somebody tells me, hey, I'm going to be on vacation, that's usually not a problem, to say, hey, 2 weeks, I'm going to be on vacation. Basically what we would do is we just go in and delay your next rebuild date 2 weeks, but then you wouldn't be getting any videos for that time. Now it wouldn't, if someone's abusing it, right? And it's like, I need a week off here, a week off there. Then it's like, well, we kind of need to commit and do something. And if we're not going to do that, then because basically, I have a limited number of students that I can work with, right? So if you are going on vacation or needing a week off all the time, right, then your spot is being held, and I can't work with somebody else, right? So I personally would allow that if it's not like an all the time thing. But if it gets to where it's like, at some point, it's going to become, well, we either need to commit to doing these or not, right? So, so the answer to the question, the short answer is yes, we will allow that, but it's just you just don't want to abuse it because you know we need to be able to work with people. We can't hold a spot for you all the time. So let's keep going. So Carl C says, in regards to improving the transition to the downswing to help create lag, is there a thought to have? You just mentioned to put pressure on my lead foot. Do I then focus on making the hip turn? That would be my thoughts on the arms, hands as I move through the downswing to the contact. So all of that's covered in the top speed lag course. If you want the things and the drills that you need to work on to create lag, then I would check out our top speed lag course and work through those drills. So pressure in the lead foot, that's what starts the downswing. That's what starts getting things moving. Basically, what we don't want to do is get up to the top of the swing and then throw the club from there. We need to have momentum being created by the lower body to be able to create that. And this is all covered in the top speed golf system. So if you want pointers on working through lag, then work through there. It's hard for me. There's no way for me to know the thought that you need to have to create lag. Everyone's different, right? So if there was one video or one drill that got everyone lag, then the top speed lag course would just be one video, right? And I'd just be able to tell you exactly what that is. But the top speed lag course is multiple videos, right? Some of them are going to resonate with you more than others, right? So it's just about working through the drills and finding what resonates with you the most and working through that. So that's what I would recommend doing. And then, if I could see your swing, I could have a better idea of what you need to do to create lag, because maybe it could be one component of, what your arms are doing or whatever. If you want to know all that stuff, I really need to be able to work with you to know what you need to be thinking. I need to be able to see your swing and stuff like that. So I wish I could help more, but there's just no way for me to know. So the only thing I can really tell you is to go work through the top speed lag course. Or sign up for online lessons. So Gus says, hi Q, Merry Christmas. Thanks, Gus. Appreciate it. The TSG system works, especially the 20-minute shallow fix, but I'm a bit confused about club face path from backswing at parallel to ground position through impact to parallel to ground position and follow through. Example, does the club face square at impact and continue down the target line square to a certain point? Straight line release is confusing me in this regard. So when we're talking about the release of the club, all we're really talking about, we're not really talking about the club face releasing. What we're talking about is just the club head releasing, really. So when we're talking about the release, basically when the club is releasing or when it's released is when the club splits the forearm. So basically it's when you've lost all your lag and now the club is going past your hands. So lag is the club head behind your hands and then the club head in front of your hands. So it's like bisecting my arms here. That would be the release. So basically I've lost all my lag and now I'm released the club and now the club overtakes my hands, right? So when we're talking about that, we're not talking about the club face. We're talking about more the club head, right? That's releasing. Now, as far as the face, right, what that's doing, the reason why we don't talk about necessarily that happening that much is because there's lots of ways to control the club face, right? There are some players that keep the club face relatively square throughout, the last part of the downswing and even into when they're releasing the club head, the face is staying square and going, kind of staying square to the arc through contact. And there are some players that kind of close that club face, let the club face kind of roll over, right? There's lots of, and then there's anything in between. So some examples would be like a Dustin Johnson or a Brooks Koepka would be guys that kind of keep the face square all the way through. Typically what you'll see with them is their trail hand will kind of stay under the club, right? So they'll be here at impact and then they'll kind of be like that when they release it. So their trail hand kind of stays under, right? But then you'll see some players that have more of a rolled release. So this would be like a Rory McIlroy, where they come in, they're here, then they release the club, then their trail hand is more kind of on the side of the club, or sometimes even on top of the club, and that club face is closed down a little bit. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. You do what works best for you, and that's what I would stick with. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, that's more of what you would be doing there. So Carl C says, I saw a video from Clay yesterday about releasing the club, focusing on the 2 fingers on the lead hand, something like casting the release at contact, thumbs up and thumbs down. Can you elaborate on this, what my hands are doing at and after contact? So I'm not familiar with the video that you're speaking of. I haven't seen the video, but I just discussed a little bit about what the hands are doing at and through contact. There's no one thing that the hands are doing, right? You can have more of a rolled release where your hands are kind of rolling over, or you can have a release where you're kind of holding the club face through contact, or you could have something in between. There's no right or wrong, right? So you move your hands in the way that gives you the best ball flight contact. So what I would say is if you're leaving the face open, then you may want to focus more on letting the hands roll over so that way the club face can get closed. If you're closing the face too much, then you may want to feel like the face is being held. So think about it this way. If you're a right-handed golfer and you're hitting a lot of hooks to the left, right, and you're feeling the hands really roll over hard through contact, then you may need to feel like you're holding the face off more, like you're kind of holding the club through. So instead of the hands rolling over, you may need to think that the hands that trail hands kind of staying more under the club to allow the club face stay more open. So what your hands need to be doing are going to be dependent on what your ball flight contact issues are. If you don't have any issues with your ball flight and contact, then whatever you're doing right now with your hands, great, right? That keep doing that. Do because whatever you're doing is functional and works, and that's what you should be doing. But if you're having trouble with the club face not squaring up at contact, or having trouble controlling where the club face is, so maybe you can square it up sometimes, but sometimes not, then at that point, you may look at what you're doing with your hands. So like I said, if you're a player that is getting the club face too close, the ball's hooking too much, right? There's too much curve to the left for a right-handed golfer, overdrawing, starting left too much for a right-handed golfer, then you may need to feel like more of a hold off, like you're not letting the hands roll over. If you're a golfer that's struggling with getting the club face closed, you're leaving it out to the right, you're slicing the ball, then you may need to feel like the hands are really rolling over through contact to help you get the club face closed. Now, if you're struggling with just controlling the face in general, it's going right, it's going left, you have no idea where it's going, then I would look at where your club face is throughout your downswing, right? So ideally, what I'd like to see, typically what I see is that players have the face too open at the top of the swing and halfway down, or halfway down. And what they have to do is they have to really flip and roll the hands over hard to get the club face to square up. And that just makes it more difficult to time. So for example, if I'm coming down at this point in the swing, I've got the club face pointing up to the sky a little bit. Well, I've got to get that club face square somehow, because even if I just kind of mildly roll my hands over, right? So let's say I'm like this, right? I'm rolling my hands over a little bit. That club face is just wide open. So what people will do is they'll be here and they'll have to roll over their hands hard. So this trail hand really gets on top of the club very early. And that just makes the club face very hard to control if you're doing that. So what I would work on is getting this club face to be in a better position here, so that way you don't have to roll the hands over so hard coming into contact, right? And that will allow you to more easily control the face. So I just start out with kind of some shorter swings doing that. Now, you either need to do that with a stronger grip or wrist angles, or it'll be a combination of those things. So a stronger grip would mean just getting the club to be, a lot of people have weak grips. I see it quite often in my unlimited swing reviews, where people have their thumbs kind of going down the top of the shaft here, right? That'd be a pretty weak grip. Well, if I'm going to square up the face, right, and have shaft lean, then I'm going to have my wrist kind of in this kind of position at impact to do that. very difficult thing for most people to do. So what will typically happen is they'll be right here, and then they'll have to really flip and release the club early and get that trail hand rolling over on top to square it up. So a stronger grip, right? So if I'm here normally, and then I just have a stronger grip, well, now look, I don't have to have that kind of wrist angle coming into contact to square up the face. I can be like this with a stronger grip, and you can see my wrist is in a much more, feasible position for most people. So strengthening the grip can definitely be one thing. But if you have a weaker grip, a stronger grip is just not something that you're comfortable with. But you're more comfortable with creating these wrist angles, then what you can do instead of basically being like this, right, where you maybe have a cupped wrist at this point in the swing, then you can kind of bow that wrist down, and now I can come into contact and be more like this, right? I can have a bowed wrist in a square face with a weak grip. So that would be somebody like a Colin Morikawa. Like, he has a weak grip. He really bows his lead wrist to get that face squared up at impact, and also to be able to get shaft lean and compress the ball. So like I said, there's no one thing that your hands need to be doing. You need to look at what your ball flight contact issues are, or what you're trying to change about your ball flight and contact, and that will dictate what your hands will need to be doing differently, right? And in order for me to know that, I would need to be kind of working with you. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's keep going. So Mark says, where do you find the instructions with pictures to print for each lesson in the Top Speed Golf system? I don't think the Top Speed Golf system has that. The shallowing fix has that, but I don't think the Top Speed Golf system has that. Let me double check. Because I'm the one who created the ones for the 20-minute shallowing fix. And let me see here. There we go. Sorry. Bear with me here. I'm checking the website here to see what. If it was there, it would be like in the introduction video. Let me see here. Yeah, I don't think that there's anything printable for the. Yeah, there's nothing printable there. But what you can do is, if you go to the video on the website, it has like the practice keys and stuff below the video. Now, it's not, you can print that if you want to. So if you go below the video, you'll see print, save keys and drills, and you can do that. But there's no, that's for every video, I believe. So let me go to the second video here. I didn't even know that was there. That may be something they added recently. Yeah, so if you go below in the practice keys and drills, there's a practice keys and drill tab below every video. You can print the key drills from there. But as far as like a one-sheeter that kind of encompasses like the whole thing, that's not provided for the Top Speed Golf system. It's really just because it's too much. Like the Top Speed Golf system is meant to be done over a long period of time, right? It's not like go to the range one time and do it. It's a, reps, doing that a lot. So, to make it'd be very difficult to make it like a one sheeter or, something like that. But the 20-minute shallowing fix does have, I believe, let's see here. I think if you go to, not sure exactly where it is. I think if you go to the start here, yeah, it's somewhere in there. Oh yeah, print your. So if you go 1.3 in the 20-minute shallowing fix, there's the thing where you can print your. Yeah, so if you go to the bottom there, you can print it. All right, so let's get back here. So Mark says that was Mark W there. This is just Mark. Says Q, I see an impact snap on your bookshelf. Can you please show me how the best way to use the practice tool? Also, I'm one of the guys that think office hours is invaluable. Thanks for the great tips and advice. Merry Christmas. So just a quick tutorial on the Impact Snap. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is a great training tool, especially like indoors this time of year where you can't, swing a club and things like this. This really helps with like the wrist angles that I was talking about. So what this does is this gives you feedback on whether you're putting your wrist in the correct position or not. So if you look here, if I take my grip on here and then I really kind of flip my wrist through contact, well, look, it's got this arm with this ball on it. I want that to be touching my arm here, right? So if I use poor wrist angles, right, and I kind of flip the face, right, and I early release and I kind of roll my hands over, look, that's nowhere near touching my arm. But if I get here and I come into contact here, and now look at, I've got some good shaft lean here, and look at my wrist angles. I've got some bow in my lead wrist here. This would be kind of using a weak grip. You can see my trail wrist is extended back. I'm squaring up the face. I have shaft lean. Now look at, see where the arm is, right? So where the ball is now on my arm here. And that's what I want. So it really helps you to kind of feel that. It also has a little slider in here. So that way when you release it, right, it gives a little snap. That's why it's called the Impact Snap. So you can really kind of feel this releasing out in front. We want to hear that snap when our hands get more out in front. As far as drills to work through this, if you go to Impact Snap's website, they have a really good protocol that I would recommend checking out, working through it. Basically, simply put, you start out with kind of waist level to waist level swings, getting the wrist motions to work correctly. And then you work, then you grab a club and basically try to get that same kind of wrist motions with shorter swings. Then you work up to like lead arm parallel kind of swings and do the same thing. Start out slow, get the feeling, get this to be touching your arm as you're coming through. Do the same thing with the club, then go up to the full swing. But they have a lot of drills in there. We have a few drills on the website, videos where we talk about the Impact Snap. If you want to check those out, you can check those out. But their protocol on their website is great as well. Just starting with the waist level to waist level swings, then lead arm parallel to lead arm parallel, then the full swing. That protocol works pretty well in my opinion. So that's what I would check out. It's just impactsnap.com if you want to check those out. But if you want to check out our videos, if you go to the homepage by clicking the house icon at the top, and you go to like I think it's called member quick links on the right hand side, you'll see where the Impact Snap videos are. You can click the link and it'll take you to that. You'll also see the promo code where you can purchase. You can get a small discount, by purchasing it through there. It's just C Ballard. If you go to impactsnap.com, the coupon code, I believe it gives you 10% off on there. Full disclosure, we do get like a small kickback from them if you do buy one using our code. But it's nice to get a discount as well. All right, let's keep going. So Jerry D says, "Hi Q, you mentioned Peak by Erickson and Poole several weeks ago. I recently finished it and have embraced their purposeful practice ideas, focused feedback, and getting out of my comfort zone. In my case, your stick drill fits that model and has done wonders for me. Thanks." Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with what that is, what Peak is, it's just a book by Anders Ericsson and I think it's Robert Poole. Yeah, Robert Poole. Awesome book. If you're looking to just improve at anything, basically the idea behind the book is that nobody is like prodigies don't really exist. They're all made kind of the same way, right? Through hard work and determination. Like Michael Jordan didn't just, he's not just born Michael Jordan and, the greatest basketball player of all time. Like that guy was one of the hardest working, like he went through it. He had the right mental model for everything. That's kind of what it comes down to. Ray Allen, didn't become, didn't make the most threes in NBA history by accident. Like he took thousands and thousands of shots. Same thing with Steph Curry. Like that doesn't happen by accident. Like it's not that they're just talented. It's that they worked really, really hard and practiced in the right way. So basically, the way that it works is that if you practice in the correct way, you can really get good at anything for the most part. Now, there are physical things, like if I wanted to play in the NBA, it would be pretty tough. I'm not very tall, right? I'm 5'11", so there aren't a lot of under 6 foot guys that are in the NBA. You have to be supremely, very. The amount that I would have to work and to become an NBA player would be a lot more than like what Shaq had to work. Not that Shaq didn't work hard. Obviously, he's one of the greatest too, but it's definitely easier for a guy like Shaq, who's over 7 foot, to get in the NBA than me. There's a lot of 7 foot people that aren't in the NBA that have tried to be in the NBA and just aren't good enough, right? So it's not just being tall; it just makes it a little bit easier, right? So there are physical things, but to develop the coordination, the awareness, the athleticism, and all that stuff, that's all done through practicing the right way. So what Jerry talked about was being very focused on what you're doing, using feedback mechanisms. So an example of a feedback mechanism would be like if you're speed training. A feedback mechanism would be like the club head speed monitor, right? A PRGR. If you don't know if what you're doing is helping you swing faster, right, then you don't know that it's actually helping you do anything, right? So that a big reason why we encourage using the divot board, because it's a great feedback mechanism. If you're on a mat and you just hit a bunch of shots and you work on things and you're trying to work on not chunking the ball, well, if you don't have anything giving you feedback on whether you're doing that or not, then you don't know if what you're doing is actually helping you. Getting out of your comfort zone. If you're trying something new, it should be uncomfortable and out of the comfort zone. If it's not, then you're probably just doing the same thing that you were doing before. So embrace getting out of your comfort zone. I heard something, it was like an interview with Michael Jordan a while back, where somebody asked how he became so great. And he said that he learned to love the things that most people hate, or something along those lines, right? So he learned to love being out of his comfort zone, and a lot of people just aren't willing to do that, right? And it's not just, the physical things. Sometimes it's like, people that played with Michael Jordan, right, aren't necessarily the biggest fans of him, right? He got under people's skin. And part of that was because of how he was. He tried to get other people to get out of their comfort zone, right? So there's a lot of that's involved. So really what we want to have focused practice. We want to have a clear and specific goal of what we're trying to do. We want to have the correct mental model of what that is, right? We want to have feedback. We want it to be measurable feedback, right? So we want to be able to look at it and see clearly, are we getting better? So measurable feedback would be like your club head speed monitor. It's measuring how much you're clearly seeing. Okay, 102 is better than 100, or 100 is better than 95, right? It's giving you measurable feedback. And then the last thing that we want is we want it to make it increasingly more difficult. So that's getting out of the comfort zone. So if we just continue to do things that are easy, that are in our comfort zone, then we're not going to get much better. There's a reason why people, I prefer to practice. I like practicing short game because I'm decent at it. I enjoy it more because I'm decent at it. It doesn't challenge me that much, but I enjoy doing it more because I'm better at it. But that's probably not what I need to be doing to improve. Now, on the other side of that, it depends on the person, but I do think, if you're not someone who's willing to get out of your comfort zone, then working on things that you do find comfortable is better than doing nothing. I will say that. So that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier when someone asked, what should I be working on? What's the hierarchy of things that I should be working on? And really just pick something and go with it. And even if you just pick something that that you're going to enjoy the most, because it can help you to develop the routine of working on things, and then you can work toward eventually working on things that are out of your comfort zone a little bit more. But even within the things that you enjoy working on, embrace getting in your comfort, out of your comfort zone with those. So awesome book if you want to check it out, and it's also available on Audible. I think the best way to read books, in my opinion, is to listen to it on Audible while you actually have the physical book and you're following along with the book, and then you can pause it, take notes or whatever, or highlight something or whatever you want to do. That's what I found to be the best way to kind of get things out of books. In college, I wish I had all the books on audio, because I probably would have done a lot better with it. Because I probably get distracted and stuff like that. But if I'm listening to it and kind of reading along with it at the same time, my retention's a lot better. I absorb a lot of it more. So I used to find that I had to read books several times when I was in school, or I wouldn't read it several times, and I wouldn't really do that well with it. I needed to really go over the information over and over and over to do well with it. But if I read it and listen to it at the same time, it cuts that down quite a bit. So if you have those tools available to you, I definitely recommend it. All right, so let's keep going. So Jerry R says, hi, Q, happy holidays. Thanks, Jerry. Same to you. I built a stronger grip after working through the shallowing videos series. What I'm finding is the ball starting straight and drawing excessively is a solution just to have a weaker grip or coming more from the inside. So if the ball is curving too much and the face is too closed, so a weaker grip would get the face less closed. So yeah, you probably just over strengthen the grip. You just need to get it. If the ball is over curving, so here's a good guideline to go by. If the ball is curving too much, then you need to change the face, right? So if the ball's curving too much, you need to change the face. The way that you can change the face is by the grip is typically the easiest thing. So if the face is too open, you can strengthen the grip, right? If the ball's slicing, then the face is too open. Then I need to strengthen the grip. If the ball's overdrawing or drawing excessively, like you talked about, then we need to have the face more open, less closed, right? And you do that by weakening the grip. You can also do it with wrist angles, right? So if I cup my wrist, my lead wrist, right, you can see how that opens the face. If I bow it, that closes the face. So again, if I'm slicing, I can bow my wrist to close it. If I'm overdrawing it, then I can cup my face to get it less closed, right? The way that you release the club, releasing the club earlier closes the club face, releasing it later opens the club face. So you can that'd be more of an advanced way, a more difficult way. That's more of a long-term fix. You're not generally going to just change your release. The release of the club head is definitely something that takes time. It's more of a long-term goal. You're not going to go to the range and just change your release in one range session. Most people anyway. So yeah, those are all ways to control the face. So the easiest way, grip. The second easiest way is wrist angles. And then the third way would be with the release of the club. Those are all things you can do. But if let's say the ball isn't curving too much, it's pretty straight, but still in the wrong direction. So that'd be like a pull or a block. In that case, you need to change the path of the club. So if you're pulling it, what's happening is that the club path is too much out to in, and then your club face is in that same direction. Now, in that case, we would want to feel like we're swinging more to the right. Now, the club face is going to go with your path, right? So it's not like if I'm pulling it and then I change my path even more to the right, that my club face is going to stay closed. When I swing more to the right, my club face is going to go out to the right as well. Generally, it usually does. So yeah, if the ball's curving too much, then you need to change the club face. If it's overdrawing, then we need to have the face more open. If it's over fading, then we need to have the face more closed. If the ball isn't curving too much, it's just going in the wrong direction, right? So it's a block, push out to the right or a pull to the left for right-hander, then we need to change the path. We need to swing, in the opposite direction, basically. So if we're pulling it, we need to feel like we're swinging more out to the first base side, right? If we're blocking it out to the right, then we need to feel like we're pulling it more toward the third base side. All right, so let's keep going. Gary P says, any experience with new product called the Wiz Watch? Nope, I haven't even heard of it, to be honest. No experience with that. Sorry about that, Gary. So Carl C says, where in the TSG website can I find the Impact Snap tool to purchase? So we don't sell the Impact Snap on our website. You go to Impact Snap's website. So it's just impactsnap.com. And then you can use the promo code CBallard to get 10% off if you're interested. And you can find that on the homepage. You can see the code there, the CBallard code. So if you click the house icon and go to the homepage, you look under the member quick links, you'll see what I'm talking about there. But to purchase it, we don't actually sell the Impact Snap. We just have a code that you can use to get a small discount. If you want to go check that out, just go to impactsnap.com. All right. So Paul B says, in a short game practice, I noticed that from the rough, the ball came out lower and seemed to roll shorter than from the fairway. What is the fix for this? Came out lower. I mean, usually out of the rough, it'll actually come out higher. So it's interesting that it's coming out lower. I don't know. I'm not really sure why. I would need to kind of see what's going on. But generally, if it's coming out, you may be trying to hit down on it more out of the rough, and that's making it, use more loft. And, that might be something to make it come out higher. I would need to kind of see what's going on because that doesn't really make a lot of sense. If it comes out lower and then also rolls out less, you should be the opposite, right? If it's coming in lower, unless you just have a ton of spin on it, which out of the rough, you're not generally going to have more spin. So not sure what's going on there. I kind of need to see what's going on to see between the two. But if you want the ball to come out higher, use more loft, right? Or maybe if you have a lot of loft, you can open up the face a little bit to get it to come out higher. But yeah, I would kind of need to see what's going on there to know for sure. All right, so keep it coming. We got about 20 minutes left. So JR says, when Clay discusses pitching the ball, his stance is narrow and slightly open. When he discusses having the club face open, what is the rationale for this? So having the stance closer together, more narrow, allows you to stay more central, right? So if I have my stance wider, I'm going to generally kind of shift my weight more, right? So I'm going to shift my weight to my trail side. I'm going to shift my weight to my lead side, right? So I'm moving my body around because I need to do that to create power. But in the short game, I don't need to create power. I'm not trying to do that, right? I'm trying to create accuracy and be more precise with what I'm doing. So in order to do that, I can have my feet closer together so there's less of a weight shift there, right? Now, I don't want to have my feet like this because if I like this, then I don't have any stability. So what I like is generally, a club head, a couple club heads apart. I think is typically a good place to be, maybe a club head and a half for like 30 yards and in. That's generally what I'm doing. It allows me to stay pretty central, but it allows me to still have the stability that I need. If my feet are really close together, then I become a little bit more top heavy, right? As far as the feet being rotated open, right? So in around the greens, we don't need to make a full backswing. So we don't need to have our body square or even closed off to be able to turn our backs to the target very much. So it's actually more advantageous to have your feet a little bit more open because it helps you to kind of open up a little bit more through the shot. So that's why I recommend that. So feet a little bit close together, feet a little bit open, makes it easier to turn our body kind of through the shot. So that's why you want to have the feet a little bit more open. As far as opening up the face goes, what's the rationale behind that? It's not required. I don't recommend doing it excessively unless you need to hit like a very high kind of flop kind of shot. I only like opening it up just a small amount. And what that does, it just adds a little bit more loft, helps the ball get up in the air. a little bit, and it also exposes a little bit more bounce on the wedge. If I open up, so bounce is this hunk of metal on the bottom of the club. This is like a pitching wedge, so not a ton of bounce there, but on more higher lofted wedges like a 56 degree or something like that, there's going to be more of a chunk of metal on the bottom of the club. Now, what that allows the club to do is it allows it to kind of glide more on the turf. So if you happen to hit a little bit behind the ball, depending on the lie, that bounce will help it not dig so much in the turf. If I get that leading edge coming down, right, then that leading edge hits the turf and it can dig, right? So if I get the bounce kind of hitting the turf more first, it helps the club kind of glide more on top of the turf. So you don't have to be so precise with where you're hitting the ground. It gives you a little bit more margin for error there. So just opening up the face slightly allows you to, one, add a little bit of loft. Two, that can help you to get a little bit more spin. And then third, it can help you to expose the bounce a little bit more to help the club kind of glide through the turf. It's not a requirement, but it's definitely something that can help. All right, so Paul B says, if I ask the question again more clearly, from the same distance chip from fairway, then another from the rough, is there a change in the swing shape? Certainly can be. It just depends on the lie. If you have a good lie in the rough, you have clear access to the back of the ball, then it's not really going to change the swing. But what the ball does may be a little bit different. So typically when you hit out of the rough, the ball will actually come out higher for a couple of reasons. So assuming you're taking kind of the same swing for a couple of reasons. One is because a lot of times you'll hit the ball a little bit higher on the club face, which will make the ball go a little bit higher. And then two, because the club face is getting, if you're hitting out of the rough, even if you have clear path to the ball, typically you are going to get some moisture and debris, grass or whatever between your club face and the ball before it gets to it. And that moisture is going to make the ball slip a little bit, and that will make the ball go up a little bit higher, right? And that will also make it, it may come down a little bit softer, but it will typically have less spin. So it may come down from a steeper angle of descent. So it may come down like this as opposed to like that, but it will have less spin. So it may roll out a little bit when it happens. A lot of it depends on where it's landing. Is it landing on a hard surface or whatever? But generally speaking, if you take the same swing, it's typically out of the rough. It's going to come out a little bit higher, and it's going to have a little less spin. So you may need to hit it a little bit harder to get it to where you're wanting it to go, right? If you're trying to carry it to a certain place. Now, if it's a bad lie, right? Let's say, you don't have clear access to the ball. If you were to take the same swing, if it got hung up, it may get too hung up in the rough and you won't be able to make good contact with the ball. In that case, the swing itself doesn't necessarily change very much. It's more just like the ball position. The swing itself can change if it's kind of excessive. But let's say, a normal fairway kind of shot, or like a good lie in the fairway kind of shot is going to be kind of more middle of the stance. So a chip may look kind of like this, right? And I'm coming in nice and shallow, right? And I'm just understanding that out of the rough, it's going to come out a little bit higher. It's not going to go quite as far. So I may need to hit it a little bit harder. And it's going to tend to roll out a little bit, right? So, but if I'm in a tough lie, like it's kind of deep rough, I can barely maybe even see the golf ball. Then what I'm doing is I'm getting that ball more in the back of my stance because I need to drop this club more down there. So I might have a little bit more wrist hinge. So that way I can kind of drop the club down on the golf ball. Now, that's definitely going to come out lower because I'm de-lofting the club. I'm hitting down on it a lot. But I need to do that to get clear access to the golf ball. So really what you need to do to really understand this, and this is how I figured it out or learned to understand it, was to go learn by doing. Go to your local practice facility and practice hitting out of these different lies. See how the ball reacts out of a fairway lie. See how the ball reacts out of different fairway lies, where some that are soft and wet and some that are tight and firm. and things like that, and see how the ball reacts out of there. That's the only really way you can go and understand it. It's one thing for me to kind of tell you what happens in my experience, but that doesn't necessarily paint the picture that you need to see. It depends on how you're interpreting it from me. The best way for you to go out and figure it out is to actually go and do it. You learn by doing. That's really the best thing I can tell you. So hit out of deep lies, practice do different ways. Try to hit one where you come in like a normal shot and see what it does. Put it back in your stance, hit down on it. Try to make clean contact with it. See what the difference is. That's really the best way to kind of go about it. So yeah, there's no, I can sit here until I'm blue in the face and tell you, what you need to do, but it doesn't mean anything until you actually go out and you get to see for yourself. So that's what you really need to do. So Jace M says, can you demonstrate the backswing using the correct spine tilt from address to the top? It feels like I'm off balance when I keep the proper tilt. Thanks. So basically what's happening at address, we're going to have, some spine tilt away from the target. So the easiest way to get into this tilt position is you just take the club and kind of put it just below your chin and have your kind of look straight forward, have it just below your chin, and then going straight down to your belly button, get in your golf posture here, and then just tilt your spine. So imagine you're tilting your whole spine until this touches the inside of your leg. So now you can see that's touching the inside of my leg. That's the spine tilt that I want to have, right? That puts me in about a 6 to 8 degree position, like Clay talks about in the stable fluid spine course of the Top Speed Golf system. So that puts you in that good position there. And then as we go up to the top, we really kind of want to remain in this overall angled away position from the top. So my spine is actually curved. So it's going to tilt and curve as I go up to the top of the swing. But as we're looking from face on, what's going to happen, or what we want to have happen, is if we draw kind of two lines outside the torso, we kind of want to remain in those two lines. We can move into the trail line a little bit, but we want to remain pretty closely within those lines. And then we want to have the same angle as those lines. So if I sit up like this, I'm going to have my lines. If I have two lines right here that are about 6 to 8 degrees angled away, I want to remain in that way. So that would look something like this, right? So you can see how the overall angle of my body is still 6 to 8 degrees angled away. If you look at my back line, it's matching kind of where my torso line was at address. That's kind of ideal of what I would want to see. And you can see poor examples of that, poor spine movement would be going here and then kind of moving too far off the ball, right? So I get my head moving too, so that means I'm not really extending my spine very much. I need to do a little bit of this as I go up to the top. I don't want to do it too much, but I want to have a little bit of this. If I just stay in my forward bend, right? So here's your forward bend. If I just stay in my forward bend and then turn my body, look, I have too much spine tilt and my head's moved way off the golf ball, right? So I need to have a little bit of that as I go up to the top, and that's going to put me into that good position. Now, if I do this excessively, right? If I extend excessively from my hips here, right? If I extend excessively, then if I get into my good position here, and then I extend excessively as I get to the top, well, now I have a reverse spine angle. I'm going to be in trouble from there typically as well. I'm going to have a hard time swinging from the inside. I'm going to have a hard time starting to downswing properly. I'm going to have a hard time making ball first contact. There's just a lot of issues that can arise from that. Not always. You can certainly recover from it, but generally speaking, there are issues that typically lead from that. So we don't want to extend too much as we go up there. Now, what we're also going to be doing is we're going to be tilting. So as we go up to the top of the swing, our spine is going to be tilting down like this, right? So what that's called is left side bend. So for right-handed golfer, it's going to be left side bend. So if you think of my hip staying level right here, and then in my mid spine here, or in my upper spine, it's going to be curving, and that's going to make my lead shoulder tilt down. If I didn't have any tilt, then I would just look like this. I add the tilt, now I look like that. So if I show you it from this angle, right, no tilt, and then I add the tilt in there. Right, so I've stayed with my body away from the ball. So a great way to work on this would be just to get in front of a mirror, put a club across your shoulders here, and just kind of, or you can, something that I like to do is I'll set up my iPad and I'll kind of have it in selfie mode and I'll watch myself. If you don't have a mirror, you can do that, right? So kind of look at yourself on video as you're moving. So you can get in your setup here, like what I just talked about, get your tilt, and then you can look at yourself on and see, okay, am I moving properly, right? Am I tilting? Am I getting my tilt down? Am I staying pretty stationary? Am I not moving my head? If I'm moving my head way over this way, some movement to my trail side's fine. If my head turns, that's fine. But if I'm excessively moving toward the target or away from the target, that's gonna typically lead to issues. I'm either not extending my spine at all or extending it too much, right? So I just get in front of the mirror and just kind of watch and just kind of do some reps, just kind of get the feeling of doing that correctly and getting into those positions, right? And then you can even put the club in your hands and just work on getting that same feeling of doing that same thing, kind of understanding, looking at yourself as you're doing it and understanding how you're moving. Put in lots of reps. I'm telling you, if you did that for 15 minutes a night for a few weeks, right? Or for 2 weeks or something like that, you're going to be working a lot better with it, right? So yeah, that's what I would recommend doing if you're really struggling with that. All right, so let's keep going here. We got maybe a couple more minutes left here. So JR says, hey Q, these sessions with you are invaluable. Many thanks for your hard work and dedication to TSG. Best. Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that. Hopefully everybody has a good holidays. We'll have office hours tomorrow at 11 a.m. Next week, we're taking a little bit of a holiday break. We won't have office hours on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, but we'll be returning on Thursday. So Mike A says, with Tasvigal system, what is the best order to move through the instruction systems? So as far as the Tasvigal system is concerned, we went over this earlier, but the best way to kind of work through it is it goes in order. So it's stable fluid spine, then the power turn, then the lag section, then the compression line, then the straight line release. That's the order. Now there's two ways you can work through that. You can either do each section and work through all the levels in each section. So that would mean stable fluid spine, level 1, level 2, level 3. Then you would go to power turn, level 1, level 2, level 3, lag, and so on and so forth. So that's one way you can do it. Another way that you can do it is to go stable fluid spine level 1. Then you could go power turn level 1, complete that. Then you can go to the lag level 1, do all the level 1s in each section, and then go back to the stable fluid spine, do level 2, then work through all the level 2s. Now, most people don't need to do every single level because a lot of you are going to already be doing these things in your swing, right? I work with a lot of online students. I see all kinds of, ability levels from high handicap to plus handicap golfers. And typically, when I look at the high handicap golfers, 30 plus handicap golfer, that golfer is going to be doing maybe 1 or 2 pieces of the Tasvi golf system pretty well. And then all the other ones, they need a lot of work, right? Then you work into like below, let's say 20 to 30, that golfer might be doing 2 pieces of the system pretty well. Then you get into like a middle handicap golfer, and that golfer might be doing like 2 to 3 pieces of the system pretty well. Then you look at like a single digit handicap golfer, and they might be doing 3 or 4 pieces of the system pretty well. Then you look at a scratch golfer, and they're usually doing 4 or 5 pieces of the system pretty well. So depending on the level, and that's not the case with everybody, but depending on the level that you're at, odds are you're probably already doing pieces of the system pretty well. So if you look at, if you go through the videos and, you're looking at your stable fluid spine address and you're already naturally getting some good spine tilt away from the target, then you probably don't need to work through level 1 of the stable fluid spine course, because that's really what that's all about, is getting you in a good setup position with your spine. It would be redundant for you to work through that, right? So that's what I'd recommend doing. Watch the videos, look at yourself on video, see if you are doing that. If you're already naturally doing that, then you can skip to the next section or the next level, whichever, however you go about doing it. So that's kind of the way that goes through. But the order goes, and if you click the instruction tab and click the Tasvigal system, you'll see it's in the order on there. So it says stable fluid spine. That's the first one there. Then the power turn, and so on and so forth. So it's all listed in the order that you need to go in. But you can, depending on what you're seeing in your swing on video, is what you may be able to skip some of those pieces depending on where you're at. So definitely look at that. All right, everybody. Thanks. We'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.